I like the busy, bustling city. I really did like that kind of scenery. It
Oh,
was
you
very
mean
big.
a city that actually had people in it and people running around like a normal city?
Yeah, like not
Ah,
not something.
fancy that. I always thought that cities had people in them, but apparently to a couple movies, they just don't.
Yeah, exactly.
One, two, three, four.
Welcome to Nerdtaku Podcast, where we watch it so you don't have to. I'm your host, Eli. With me is my co-host, Ben.
Hello, listeners. Happy to be here.
This week, we're reviewing the 2012 action-adventure thriller, The Bourne Legacy. Spoiler warnings ahead. Ben, my dude, are there spoilers?
Every time, man.
Amen. Director, Tony Gilroy. Main cast, Jeremy Renner, Rachel Weisz, Edward Norton, Scott Glenn. This week, this film, it's one of my favorite series. And I gotta say, after finishing it, I was disappointed severely on this film. This film really kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. What were your initial thoughts after finishing this film?
Let's be honest. If they hadn't made a number 5 bringing Jason Bourne back, this movie would have completely destroyed the franchise. Dude, it was hard for me to stay awake. I was falling asleep. I'd wake up about 30 minutes later and I'd have to backtrack to continue the film. I did that like 5 or 6 times. It was just not good. It was bad.
That's a rough start if the film's putting you to sleep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful. So, The Bourne Legacy got a 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb. The synopsis for this film is an expansion of the universe from Robert Ludlum's novels centered on a new hero whose stakes have been triggered by the events of the previous 3 films. What? What hot garbage is this? I'm sorry to say. What hot?
It didn't.
No, that's trash. That's straight trash.
I mean, in some ways it did, but they mentioned Jason Bourne a few times in this film. You never see him, and these soldiers are part of the program, and they're killing them all off because of what happened with Jason. But it's just, we'll get into it. It's bad.
If I read that synopsis before reviewing this film, I would have never watched it from that. That's bad.
I don't know. I don't know how to think about the synopsis. It somewhat tells you what's going on. In a lot of the way, it has nothing to do with what the film is. I don't know. We'll get into it.
We'll get into it. So my total score for this film is a 5.5.
Mine was a 5.25.
I'm excited to see what the minute difference was. So let's start with plot.
0.5.
I gave it a 0.5. Why couldn't this film get a 0.25?
It had a good idea in its head. If you take it in as a whole, the story itself is this other soldier that's part of the same program that Jason Bourne is part of, the Super Soldier Project thing. He needs his pills to continue being the soldier he is, but the program is being shut down by the project managers, and so every agent that's part of this program is being killed off. So he's being chased. I don't even really know what Dr. Shearing's role in this is. I was confused as to why she was part of it, other than she knows the project. But after she's not killed in the lab, the whole governmental force is chasing her along with Aaron. I don't know, man. It had a pretty good plot line. It just wasn't delivered well. I just felt like it was wishy-washy. It took away from the original Bourne story, and I didn't enjoy it. So I fence lined it.
I agree with you quite a bit on the story. It was not great. It was lackluster. I was so disappointed. The reason why Dr. Martha Shearing was being chased was the fact that, remember when that one doctor went absolute rogue in the lab and started shooting everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, she escaped. She was able to leave. So they needed to take care of all the project. So she was part of the project. So that's why she was getting hunted down, because they wanted to make sure nothing was left behind. That's why. So they made it just so that a female lead could be still shine in the film, because this film was mainly Aaron. It was an Aaron Cross film where he was struggling to get his meds, and then he found a way through the doctor to actually get the injection so he doesn't have to need the meds. And I understood that this story was in between 3 and 5. It was right after 3 happened. I understand that. But it felt so cheap to just piggyback off the third one when this one initially didn't even seem like it was a sequel. It was more just like a offshoot in the universe. So I give it a 0.5 as well, and that was just how I felt. It was just mediocre.
Yeah, I just felt like Martha's character didn't need to be there at all. There was no reason for her.
After she got the medicine to him, that was it. She could have disappeared and been fine. Let's go acting.
0.5.
I gave it a 0.5 as well. The acting in this, Jeremy Renner was kind of not that good in this film. I was hoping for something way better out of him, and this was I was shocked that Oscar Isaac was even in this film for the minor moment he was in, but that was rough. The whole cast was just rough. I thought Edward Norton was so underwhelming, and nothing was there. It was just a flat line of an acting job out of everyone.
I agree. With the few films that Jeremy Renner had coming out around the same period, outstanding films, but you come into this one and you're just like, wow, I think he just took a role just to put his face out in public, like give him a little money in the pocket. I don't know. It was so underwhelming. Then of course there's Rachel Weisz, who we have already done a review on once during this show, and again, same underwhelming, over dramatic character that she has been in the past. I've not been able to ever really connect with her character, no matter what film she's in. I can't. And I don't know what Edward Norton was doing. He has some really great films out there, and this one just I swear it's just another money grab is all it was, because it could have been a stellar cast. It could have gone in a completely different direction, and it absolutely didn't. I feel like it was just trying to piggyback off the original 3 and not get a story for its own or clout for its own, and it just didn't work. It was just lackluster.
The thing that kills me is that Matt Damon, when he originally looked at the script, they were going to try to cast him for this film, but he looked at it and it was so badly written, he didn't want to put his acting career in that line of fire of bad, which I could see why. And Jeremy Renner, he did Avengers that year. He had some stellar roles. He did The Town a couple years before, Mission Impossible the year before, but then that film was just the breaking point for him, and I'm so disappointed. So disappointed.
I think it was just a money grab in between other job opportunities. That's all it was
Yeah,
for. Or it was
I
a quick cast because Matt Damon said no. It could have been that too. I don't know, but it fell short.
It truly did fall short. Character development.
0.5.
I gave it a 0.25. Why'd you give it a 0.5?
Because it averaged out. Between Aaron and Dr. Shearing, it wasn't lackluster, but there wasn't a ton of development either. It just held the fence. Aaron wanted drugs for his symptoms, his super soldier thing, needed them, went to Shearing. Shearing gave him the injection. They're kind of staying with each other throughout the film. She helps protect Aaron when he goes down for, I have no idea what happened, because he got the injection and for some reason he was still feeling the effects of the pills not being in his system. I don't know. Again, I was confused by this plot line. But then they get towards the end and they do the final chase scene, and Aaron and Shearing help each other to survive, end up on a boat, and end up together at the end. Like, there's not a lot of development, but it's also not non-existent. So I just fence lined it at a 0.5.
This character development, to me, Aaron had one mission and one mission only once he found out that he was basically blacklisted and marked for dead, is to get more drugs. That was his development, and that's all I could see throughout this whole film. Was his goal was to find a way to get more drugs. So
it was originally until he met with Shearing and then found out that she was being targeted. Then he got kind of that switch in his mind to get the drugs and protect Shearing. So a little bit of development there.
There was a little bit, but the main point was the drugs until he got them. And then she was there on the side just because she knew how to give the drugs. So ultimately, it was just a drug addict who's trying to find a way to keep himself alive.
Pretty
from
much.
having a relapse. So it really fell flat because by that ending, once he felt like super strong and like invincible, it was just another gotta save the girl and run away and hide. And they successfully did it, but in the dumbest way, in my opinion. I couldn't justify giving it a 0.5. Beyond that, everyone was just not there. Not even the bad guys really gave a good development. It was just like a regression. It was just bad.
I agree. There was, I don't know. I thought that a 0.5 was okay. Just if it was borderline.
Sound and music.
0.25.
I gave it a 0.75. One thing I liked, the ending credit song is always the same. It's always the same one that came from all the films. I really do love that one. Very nostalgic. I like the action music, and I didn't find anything really negative. I thought the explosions were pretty cool. The building up in Alaska blew up. I really did like the little pew pews and more of the sound effects that they did. So I thought this could give a 0.75. It was like a 0.65, 0.7 to me. So I gave it the 0.75. I thought it wasn't terrible.
The only thing I enjoyed out of that was the pew pews and the kabooms. Music did not pull me in at all. Sound was pretty good as far as sound effects. It was the same action sequence throughout the film. I couldn't justify anything higher than a 0.25 in my opinion. If I'm falling asleep 5 to 6 times during a film, a lot of that is because of the music.
Yeah.
It's got to pull you in. Music it intensifies your need to find out what's going on, and the music just didn't do that here. It was terrible.
I don't blame you for that. If you're falling asleep, yeah, I don't blame you. Cinematography and animation.
0.75.
Hey, I gave it a 0.75. I really did not mind this cinematography. It was actually pretty well done. I liked the quick cuts that they did for the action sequences. I really did like a lot of the chase scene, like camera shots. I really do like the explosion that happened up in Alaska. That was cool. And I like the close-ups, like the one-on-ones they did, back and forth, cutting quick. It was really well organized. I just thought it was okay. It wasn't the most amazing cinematography ever. It's an action film. It was your generic action film, quick cuts and very quick with their camera shots, but I really thought it was not that bad.
I agree. I really, really enjoyed the quick cuts. I actually liked the shaky cam that they gave. It wasn't super intense, but it was enough to show you that this certain scene is more intense than the rest. They actually did a pretty good job on their shaky cam. My downside was some of the dark shadow scenes. I couldn't really see. My light was off, and I still couldn't really see some of the scenes that were going on. Again, I myself am not a huge fan of dark scenes. The cuts between action sequences, the one-on-one camera action, the shaky cam, the overhead shots, a lot of it was really good. And I completely agree. I don't feel like there's quite enough to justify that one. I think I would probably post it more at 0.85, 0.9, but it's not quite high enough to be that one.
My favorite sequence really was in the drug facility when they were running around trying to hide from the security and all that. I love that how it was just such a quick transition of them trying to hide, trying to get the drugs and really just moving quick. That's one of my favorite scenes. And then the chase scene, 20 minutes left in the film. I gotta emphasize that. That was terrible. The shots were great. Plot-wise, that was just terrible.
Well, I'm going to get into that with directing, so I'm not going to get into it right now. But I agree. That chase scene, I got some things to say.
Let's get into directing.
0.75.
I give it a 0.5.
I think I'm going to actually take it to a 0.5 because of some things, but I'll listen to you first.
The plot of this film, it's an action film, right? Right? We can both agree this was supposed to be an action thriller, right?
It was supposed to be.
Where's the thrill? Where was the thrill?
Good question.
There was action, don't get me wrong, as Aaron Cross did a lot of punching.
They sure put a hell lot more romance than thriller in there.
Yeah, the adventure. Ooh, no, that was crap. That was straight up garbage. I wanted a thriller. I wanted as edge on my seat. I wanted a Bourne Supremacy, okay? I wanted a Bourne Supremacy type thriller, not this wishy-washy, mid-grade crap. So I'm sorry, this director, he could have done so much better. So much better.
I agree. I did put it a 0.75, but the plot line itself, there's no thriller action. I'm falling asleep 5 to 6 times during the film. And that freaking chase scene. Why? Why the hell are you putting the last bit of action, actual thriller packer, into the last 30 minutes of your freaking film? You can't do that. And that chase scene went way too long. I'm watching it. I'm just like, oh my Lord, just end this. Just end it. Stop. It's stupid. Started in a car, started on a bike. They both go. The car doesn't work anymore. The chaser ends up getting on a bike so he can fit in the same little bots that he can fit in. Freaking, if they're these ultimate soldiers, which they are, why the heck did he miss the shot when the two are coming directly towards each other? Aaron missed the shot and only got him in the shoulder. You don't see Jason doing that crap. No. They're the same breed of soldier. They have the same chemicals in their bodies to make them into these super soldiers. And Aaron misses the shot straight on. No, that would not happen. This chase scene was terrible and it was a bad directing style. It should have been cut to like a 10-minute scene and then something else happening in the last 10 minutes, not a full 20 minutes on this motorcycle chase. I lost interest quick. So my 0.75 is going down to a 0.5. Actually, you know what? I'm bringing it down to a 0.25 because I have a ton of crap on here with a 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 0.25 all in a row.
Yeah.
Plus that chase scene. I'm sorry. He did not direct this properly. It's going down to a 0.25.
That chase scene should have been midway through the film. It should have been something like that. And then there should have been more like explanations on some of the plot points with Norton, Edward's character. Why even add him at that point when he was in there for maybe 7 minutes of the whole film?
You know, I'm trying to figure out what the point of Edward Norton's character was other than to push a plot that made no sense.
Yeah, this was bad. Attraction.
0.5.
I gave it a 0.5. The name Bourne, the Bourne series, enticed me. It was something I wanted to grab on. But I'll tell you, that first 20, 30 minutes, that wasn't keeping me interested. Yeah, there was a little action, some shooting and such. Explosions happened within the 20 minutes, but I felt like I was watching two guys at a coffee bar talking. What is going on here? I feel like my barista's talking to me here instead of watching an action film. Come on, the pacing was bad. The attraction to this was gone by 20, 30 minutes. But I will say this, some of the explosions, some of the action was not bad. It kept me a little interested. But I wanted to watch this. This was downright awful. I would have turned it off probably 40 minutes in. That's awful. In a 2-hour film, I'm telling you that I'll turn it off in 40 minutes. That's saying something. So I give it a 0.5 because it kept me a little bit interested.
Listen, I fell asleep in the first 20 minutes. I had to backtrack. That's where I first fell asleep.
Yeah.
The attraction is terrible. The reason it gets that 0.5 is because of the pew-pews and the kabooms.
Pew pew.
That is what gave it its 0.5. The action sequence were lackluster. The chase scene was absolute garbage. Even him running on rooftops and then sliding down to save Dr. Shearing. Are you okay? Yeah? Okay, let's go. Like, really. 0.5 is being very, very generous for this attraction. It goes in for the pew-pews and the kabooms. That is it. You see Bourne and you think, oh man, this is going to be intense. I'm going to be on the edge of my seat. I'm going to have so much fun. I'm going to love watching this film. I'm going to have so much adrenaline by the end of it that I'm going to want to go do parkour. No, I felt none of that.
No.
It saddened me terribly. 0.5 is very generous.
Yes. Dialogue.
0.5.
I was going to give it a 0.5. I'm giving it a 0.25.
I might drop mine too. Because the one-liners sucked. The freaking whole point of the dialogue was just to push some crappy storyline forward. There were no quotes that stuck out. And the end line of the entire film.
Yes!
She says, I kind of hope we're lost. And then he rolls up the map and the music plays. It pans out. They're riding on a boat. What the heck is that?
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
garbage.
I agree with you. Mine's going down to a 0.25. It's just the lines are there to push the plot. There's nothing that sticks out.
I was so disappointed in this film. I get it. I get it. Action films should not have some amazing lines. I never expect an action film that's not a drama to have any outstanding dialogue work. But when Matt Damon turns down the script because he looks at it and he sees that it's bad, yeah, okay, there's something there. And after watching this, yeah, this was rough. There was nothing memorable. These one-liners were just awful. And you felt no emotion in these lines. It was not really written well at all. I was thinking a 0.5 because I'm like, it's mediocre at best. No, this was rough. This was bad. This was borderline disastrous. And I couldn't justify the 0.5.
I was thinking the same thing. I put it at a 0.5. I was like, I mean, it's fence lined because it's pushing the plot. There's nothing really that sticks out, but there were some one-liners that just made the film worse. Are you okay? Yeah, let's go. There was no emotion in it. It was just delivered. Same thing with the last line. It just sucked. So 0.25 brought it down. Oof.
Scenery.
That did get a 0.75.
I gave it a 0.75 as well. The locations they picked were actually really nice. I really did like the overall where they picked. It was cool. Some of the scenery they showed was really beautiful. And I liked the busy, bustling city. I really did like that kind of scenery.
Oh, you mean a city that actually had people in it and people running around like a normal city?
Yeah, like not something
fancy that. I always thought that cities had people in them, but apparently to a couple movies, they just don't.
Yeah, exactly. With the budget they had, I'm kind of hoping they had people in the city. Their budget was 125 million. I'm hoping they had some people in the city.
I concur. At least they actually fulfilled that.
Yeah. So I enjoyed it. It was very beautiful to look at, but that's all. I couldn't say, wow, this is the most amazing things I've ever seen. No, I will say that forest in the fall out in Washington, D.C. area, that was beautiful. That was a really nice looking forest, lush. The house looks cool. Don't get me wrong. That house looked cool, but yeah, that's all it's got, cool, I guess.
I agree. I found it quite enjoyable that they actually went into cities. They panned over with helicopter views. The forestry was gorgeous, but my favorite scenery was definitely in Alaska. It was just absolutely gorgeous. Snow covered, wolf packs chasing him, swimming around in the water. Even when the snowfall is coming down just before the place gets blown up, it's just gorgeous scenery throughout Alaska. But again, it's not superb and wonderful and extravagant to justify a 1 because it was only that small 30-minute section of the beginning of the film that really popped for me, other than the fact that there were actually people in the city. I can't stress that enough. If you're going to make a film in a city, make sure people are in that city, walking the streets.
Yes.
But it's not enough to justify a 1.
It's not. Now, finally, recommend.
I'm being generous with this because normally I feel like I should say 0, but I'm going to give it a 0.25 because there are some people who will enjoy it. So I gave it a 0.25.
I gave it a 0.5.
Really?
Okay, well, we've talked all these negative things. We've talked about all these plot holes. We've talked about all these acting problems and side characters and all that. But in the end of the day, it's an action film. It's not the greatest action film in the world. I will say this. It's a Jason Bourne. It's not even like a continuation, in my opinion. It's more that the writer of this book wanted to put out something that was something in the universe. And I could say it's, by means, not the worst action film I've ever seen. Plot-wise, this was rough, but I would say give it a try if you really want to, but this is something that I don't recommend to everyone because it's not the greatest.
I just have to say, I think a 0.25 is justifiable because you have the name Bourne attached to that. Every other Bourne before that has been an action thriller, on the edge of your seat, adrenaline rush. It has been amazing. Every single one of them. So they have the name Bourne attached to this. They need to deliver that same excitement for this film itself. And they didn't. People are going to be very disappointed in this film. If they are hardcore Bourne fans like I am, it's not going to work out. Yes, it had the action. There wasn't a lot of thriller. They put in a lot more romance than anything, and it hurt the film itself. So I think a 0.25 is very justifiable because of the fact they decided to put the name Bourne in that title. So they need to deliver the same thing the previous 3 Bournes did, and it does not.
See, I understand where you're coming from. It did not deliver like the last three. Even Ultimatum was superior. Even the last Jason Bourne, the fifth one, that kind of salvaged the series, but it wasn't nearly what... This thing was just a train wreck. So at the end of this whole review, this dissecting of Bourne Legacy, my final total was 5.25.
Mine dropped to a 4.5.
Oh my good lord, my it's 0.75 down.
Yeah.
I only dropped down 0.25. My lord. Woo. Let's talk about next week. It's our season finale. We're actually going to be talking about the rest of the Jason Bourne series. Movies 1, 2, 3, and 5.
It is going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot. So watching the trailers, seeing these trailers all together, you could see there is a story, and you can see that they try to keep it all on the same line. They brought in a lot of the same characters, which is really nice. Overall, it was really good, but there's a lot of mystery to it. There's a lot of mystery. So for this series alone, this series overall, I'm going to give it a 7. I think this series is going to really be a good one, but I think it's not going to be the best overall. But I'm hoping it proves me wrong.
I haven't seen the Bourne series in quite some time, so I'm pretty excited to rewatch these. Based on the trailers alone, it shows excitement, it shows thriller, action-packed, on the edge of your seat. I'm pretty stoked. I'm pretty excited for this. I am also going to give it a 7 because I know that I love the first 3. I haven't seen them in a while, so I'm going to watch it again. I'm hoping for the best here. It's been a long time since I've seen the films. I can't fully remember the entire storyline. I know there's a story with all 4 of these connected. We'll just have to see how it goes.
I agree with you there. So as we wrap up this week's episode of Nerd Taku Podcast, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into this week. If you'd like to follow us, we're on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter at nerd_taku_podcast. We're also on YouTube under Kingdom Note Studios. You can find us on all major streaming platforms. My name is Eli.
I'm Ben.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Have a great week.
See you guys. Have a lovely week and can't wait to see you again next week.
Wanna hear you go.